Good morning. In this video, I will be critically reflecting on a class that I taught yesterday. That is December, let me check the date, December 1 at Kathmandu University for BBIS students, where I teach the textbook New Directions, Reading, Writing, and Critical Thinking, edited by Peter S. Gardner. And the purpose of this video is self-enhancement as a teacher, self-development as a teacher, and to improve oneself by reflecting upon what one does or has done. So what I will do, I will play the video, and wherever I feel like saying something on what I have done here, I'll pause the video and make a reflective comment. Okay, let's start the video and see what I've got to say. In almost 2001, December 1st, 2020, first day, 2022, and we are in let me play it from the very beginning. Actually, I had played it for a while earlier. So when I resumed it, I found that it's already forwarded to a few seconds. So let me play from the beginning. Okay, this is December 1st, 2020, first day, 2022, and we are in BBIS class. And yesterday you made presentation on the essay Computers and the Pursuit of Happiness. Okay, before I turned on my mobile video recorder for recording the class, I had already taken the attendance. And usually when I begin my class, the first thing I do is I will mention the day, date, and year for a quick and convenient reference to the videos on YouTube channel, where there might be dozens of such videos. And then, as you can see, the second thing I did was I reminded my students what I had done in the previous day's class. So sometimes I remind them what we were doing in the previous class, as I did here. And sometimes I invite students to tell me what we had been doing in the previous class, up to which paragraph or up to which lesson we had completed the course. And I ask my students to recall and tell me, what do you think? Which way is better? The teacher himself reminding students to what they have been doing in the previous class, or asking students to recall themselves and tell the teacher what they were doing in the previous class? What do you think will be appropriate and more effective? Right. And we said that the central question that this essay raises is, what makes us happy? Technology or something else? Right here, I want to say something. The third thing I did was that I told my class what the central idea of this essay was. That is, what makes us happy? This is the question which David Galanter's essay, Computers and the Pursuit of Happiness, in chapter 3 of the textbook New Directions, Reading, Writing, and Critical Thinking raises. What I want to say here is that I have observed that whenever we ask our students to read an essay at home and then come into class grasping the theme of the essay or grasping the main idea of the essay or the issue of the essay, I have observed that most of the students, in most of the cases, have no idea regarding the central issue an essay is raising, or regarding the theme of an essay, or regarding the central argument of an essay. What I want to say here is that in my case, if I have to make an observation based on my limited experience of teaching in Kathmandu University to bachelor students for the last 5 6 years, I've found that the students are quite underprepared with regard to their reading skills. Our students do not have very strong reading skills. As they read, they are not able to decipher the central idea of the essay. Let's move ahead. And the writer says that it is not technology that makes us happy. It is, for example, if you see paragraph 3, line number 4, there's a sentence. We have always needed food in agricultural age, in industrial age, or today. We have needed food, clothes, and shelter. There is no change. And above all, each other. So what makes human beings happy is interacting with each other. One thing that I want to speak right now is that strikes my mind here is that I referred to paragraph 3, line number 3 in the essay, and I read a sentence where David Galanter says that we have always needed food, clothing, shelter, and position, but above all, we need each other. And then I wrote that thing on the whiteboard. So what I'm doing, I am trying to make my students the central idea of this essay by referring them to a line in paragraph 3. How am I doing this? I am doing this by being teacher centered. I'm speaking very slowly. I'm trying to be as clear as possible in my use of language, and I'm trying to make my students understand an idea or understand a content, grasp a content. Now, as I sit back here one day after and reflect on my video, I do realize that probably this is not effective way of teaching, because here I, as a teacher, am being active and I'm trying to paraphrase an idea. I'm trying to explain an idea. I'm trying to clarify an idea to my students. And what are my students doing while I'm speaking? My students are listening to me. No doubt, I remember yesterday in class, my students were quite serious and they were listening to me silently. I guess most of them were listening to me actively, not passively. Even then, I should say that my students were listening to me and I was speaking to them. The question that I want to raise here is, how much should be the amount of a teacher talk in a language and literature class, and how much should be the amount of student participation or student interaction or conversation in the class. Another thing I clearly reflect and realize is that at this point in my attempt to teach in this class right here, I am being teacher centered. I'm not being learner centered. So a question raises in my mind as I reflect. The question is, how could I have taught at this moment in another way so that my function in the class at this moment would be more learner centered, not teacher centered. Before I speak further on this issue, let me play the video and complete the segment. I'll pause and come back to this point of being teacher centered or learner centered. And this essay was written in uh, almost 2001. It appeared in 2001, 21 years before. Then we did not have Facebook, and the screen time was less than. If you write, if you revise this essay today, and you will see what is happening today. We spend major portion of our time on screen. And what as we spend a lot of time on screen, we give less and less time to real people around us. You see many short videos on social media where you see all family members in the living room, grandchildren, sons and daughters, parents, uncle, auntie, and the video shows that everybody is in the same room, but nobody is talking to anybody because everybody is browsing on the internet. They are together, but they never talk. So what comes between two people? The mobile phone. The mobile phone comes between two people, or the internet comes between two people. Now, as you're watching me reflecting here, dear friends, if a professor is watching, I want to talk to you, respected professor, teachers, or anybody watching my video. As I look back on this video, on one side, I feel that as a teacher, I was able to explain the point very clearly. I brought an example of how the family members keep browsing on the internet over the mobile phone, and how they do not talk to each other, right? And how I mentioned the development of social media in the past few years. So I feel that as a teacher, I am explaining quite well, I'm paraphrasing quite clearly, and I believe that my students get the idea that internet is creating a problem in human relation. But what strikes my mind is that I am speaking here, I am active here, the teacher is speaking, the teacher is active. What about the learners? Though I wish I had two cameras in my class, one focusing the teacher and the other focusing the student, so that I could switch back to the another mode and I could show you what my students were doing. I remember this class has about 25 learners, not a large size class. And I remember that yesterday, while I was teaching this class, most of the students were listening to me quite carefully, seriously. It was a silent class and students seem to be attentive. But what is the guarantee that when learners listen silently to the teachers, they are actively listening? Maybe they seem to be listening to the teacher attentively, but maybe inside their minds they have some other thoughts. They might be thinking about something else. Their bodies are there Physically, they are there present, but maybe their minds are not attending the teacher. So I realize that I am being teacher centered, and now I have a concern that what I could do to be learner centered. I do not have any answer to my question what I could do to be learner centered. I wish I had done M.Ed, or I did B.Ed long ago, but I didn't go to classes most often. I took the examinations and got the degree. So I do not have very practical knowledge of all these tools and techniques and approaches and methods of running a class. But I wish I was in a class where I was trained about such things. I have been teaching for more than 3 decades by now, and I started reflecting like this about 7, 8 years ago. Now, questions emerge as I reflect, but I do not get answers. Let me move ahead.
Or the World Wide Web, or the technology comes between two people. Actually, it is technology that is separating us from each other. Right? And yesterday, I need to clean the glasses. I have lost my eyesight so badly in the last 4 months.
Now I catch how I use language wrongly. I said I have lost my eyesight. This is not the correct expression to use at the moment. I should have said I'm gradually losing my vision. I should have said I am gradually becoming short-sighted. I do realize that my command of English language is not as strong as I want it to be, and many times in the classroom as I speak in English medium for English language instruction, I do realize that because of the lack of strong command of my English language, I suffer.
My eyesight has become quite poor. It was better 6 months ago. Okay. Yesterday we were in paragraph 6, where we read how the machines to create, store, and distribute information were already there. Even during the previous industrial era, there were cameras to take photograph, radio networks, newsreels, television, transistorized electronics, long distance phone network, communication satellite, fax machine, photocopy, audio and video tape, CDs, cell phones, cable TV, all these were already there. And this personal computer is just an extension of that technology. It is nothing all new. Then we were reading in paragraph 7, where David Galanter answers the second objection, that computers have overcome geography. Right? Let's read paragraph 7. I'll read and you can follow me.
Did you realize I could hear somebody yawning? Let me play back and see if you can check it, the sound.
Right? Let's read paragraph 7.
Did you hear this sound? Now I remember pretty well. I even remember the face. It was a student at the back of the class who yawned. And now, as I reflect back, many questions crop up in my mind as I watch myself. Why did he yawn? Was he lazy, or was it because my class was dull? And somehow I realized that if I had taught this class in a different way, by engaging my students, by involving them in activities, maybe that student sitting at the back of the class too would have been involved in one or another activity in the class, and then he would not have been yawning. I do realize that being teacher centered made him yawn. Let's move ahead.
I'll read and you can follow me. The defeat of geography in cyberspace and the American dream, that's the name of the book, distributed electronically by the Progress and Freedom Foundation. A distinguished group of authors argued that we continue the final generation of an old civilization and at the very same time the first generation of a new civilization. Their claim centered on the idea that thanks to computer networks, geography had in effect been overcome. Henceforth, shared interests and not physical proximity would shape community and society. So what does he do in paragraph 7? In paragraph 7, he brings a counter argument. In paragraph 7, David Galanter brings a counter argument. He brings an objection. For example, he is quoting, if you see carefully in paragraph 7, Galanter is quoting a line from the book Cyberspace and the American Dream. From which book does he quote? Cyberspace and the American Dream. And the line says that we are about to reach the end of a generation, old generation without computer, and we are having a new generation based on computer. And then they write that now computers will overcome distance. This is the old view that it is because of computers that we can overcome distance. Then he answers that objection in paragraph 8. Let's read paragraph 8 and see how it is answered. But, look, your counter arguments or your responses might begin with but. So when you start a sentence with but, that means before this sentence there was an idea and you are opposing that idea. He writes, you can follow the line as I read, but using technology to defeat distance has been another goal of the Industrial Revolution. From the start, from the railroad, now he says, no, it's not internet. Even before the computers came, there were railroads. You could cover thousands of kilometers in a few hours. Panama Canal, railway networks, telegraph network. You could send messages to thousands of kilometers away. Air and phone and highway, radio, TV network. The internet is the latest in a long line. So the argument is making is that the internet did not fall from the sky all of a sudden. The internet
Again, at this point, I realized an inappropriate use of language. I said the internet did not fall from the sky. This is a very good example of the impact of mother tongue in second language speaking. What I wanted to say is that internet did not emerge all of a sudden. Now, while I reflect, I get this right phrase, did not emerge all of a sudden, or did not emerge all of a sudden from nowhere. But at that moment, at the spur of the moment in the class, I didn't get the right phrase. And now I realize that I need to improve the command of English language.
Internet is a further development of the previous technology. And when you talk about internet, do not forget the previous technology. It is just a growth of the technology that was there. So we are not entering there. So his argument is there is no phase shift. There is no phase shift. Rather, there is continual development, continual growth. There is no phase shift like some people say we were in the agricultural phase that ended and we came to industrial age that ended and now we are in information age. No. It's not that one age completely ends and another begins. What is that? Things continuously develop. Okay. Paragraph 9. The 20th century teemed with smart machines. 2. Long before the computers showed up. Look, he says, long before computers came, there were already technologies like computer. And I give you an example. There were smart machines. And see the example. Simple ones like thermostat. So thermostat is also a smart machine like a computer. There were cars' electrical system. The car's electrical system is also a smart technology like computer. There were automatic transmissions. And there were Norden bomb sight in World War II. What is Norden bomb sight? Norden bomb sight is a device used in military aeroplanes to help to guide bombs. He gives 3 examples. He gives 3 examples to show that there were already smart machines before computers. Right? Then he writes, granted, computers are a huge advance over the machines that came before, but huge advances are the stuff of the industrial age. He says that if you think computers are huge advances, then every time a new machine comes, people feel it's huge advance. Tomorrow, maybe we'll have another technology which will defeat computers. Then you will say that no, computers are nothing. Right? Okay.
As I watch myself, strongly I'm feeling that I'm speaking and explaining. Yes, I feel that I'm trying to explain as clear as possible. But the root question that is coming in my mind is that who is active in my class? No doubt the teacher is active and the learners are passively listening. And I do realize that if teachers are active like this, keeping their learners passive in class, learning will not take place. If you're watching my video, what do you think? Please judge me here. Please evaluate my performance here. And please write in the comment box what you would have done if you were in my place. Or do you think what I was doing in class is appropriate and effective to make learning happen? Or it is ineffective?
The web is a big deal. Okay, you might say that the web is a big deal, but flying machines were also big deal when they started. Radio and television were also big deal when they first started. And just like internet, radio and television also changed the nature of American democracy. The electric power industry turned society inside out. Look, just imagine life without electricity, what things will disappear? Right now in this class, we won't have that mobile phone and camera. We won't have the projector. We won't have the desktop there. We won't have light. Maybe this building structure will be different to have enough light. You just imagine life without electricity. Okay, then we go to paragraph 10. He makes a claim in paragraph. I'm explaining, reading line by line. I hope you are following the lines and trying to see. Though you are passive, I'm active. The cost of not knowing history is not ignorance so much as arrogance. So in paragraph 10, in paragraph 10, he is responding to the writers he brought in para 7. In paragraph 7, he quoted a line from Cyberspace and American Dream. Right? And in paragraph 10, he says that the cost of not knowing history is not ignorance so much as arrogance. So those people who argue that there is phase shift, they do not know history. They better read history. Those people who think that we are in new age, they actually do not read history.
A question that crops up in my mind at this moment is, do our students learn by listening to their teachers like this? As I was explaining like this as clearly as possible, was learning taking place in my students? What is learning? How do students learn? Is my class learner-centered? Is my teaching style uh, learning prone?
They have no idea about the machines we already had in the industrial era. And he says that they are arrogant people. They are not only ignorant, they are arrogant to believe that we have a new generation. A popular book about the internet and the web begins with this personal note from the author. Now, again he brings a quotation from another book to show that how these people don't know history. Let's read. He brings a line from another book. The internet is by far the greatest and most significant achievement in the history of mankind. What? Am I saying that the internet is more impressive than the pyramids? More beautiful than Michelangelo's David? More important to mankind than the wondrous inventions of the Industrial Revolution? Yes, yes, and yes. David Galanter is trying to criticize this attitude, and he says this is arrogance. This is arrogance. The attitude expressed in this quotation is arrogance, he says. And he says such arrogance results when writers do not read history, when they don't have the knowledge of history. They speak like this. Paragraph 11. That sort of statement which he quoted suggests that technologists are fundamentally unserious. Now he's blaming to the people whose line he quoted earlier. He says, technologists are unserious. By the way, it is a useful and interesting book, but the author protests too much. It is hard to picture comparable statements greeting the aeroplanes or the electric power industry's emergence. They were too big and too obviously important to need this sort of cheerleading. What the author is really announcing is not a new age of information, but a new age of hype. Okay. A new age of new age. Paragraph 12. Computers and the
One thing I realize here is that I should have explained the meaning of the word hype to my students. Uh, I just skipped the line without explaining the word meaning to them. I assumed that my students know the meaning of this word hype. Now, as I reflect here, I do realize that I should have either asked my students if they know the meaning of the word hype, or I should have explained its meaning, which is a slang word meaning a narcotics addict or hypodermic, uh, or something that stimulates or enlivens or increases, or something that deceives. A hype also means deception or publicity, right? But I didn't explain. Now, as I reflect, I do realize that I should have explained the meaning of this word.
internet have made a revolution in science. Now look, in good argument, in what is a good argument? A good argument has something known as concession, or we call it to concede, to agree to your opponent. A good argument does not 100% oppose the opponent. A good argument agrees to good points of your opponent. Look, up to here, Galanter was saying that we are not in new age and computers are not anything wondrous. Now he is conceding that yes, computers too have positive aspect. Let's read. Computers and the internet have made revolution.
As I check the meaning of the word conceit in my mobile dictionary, I do realize that the use of the word conceit at this moment in the class was inappropriate. Actually, conceit means to acknowledge grudgingly. I should have used the word acknowledge rather than using the word conceit.
In science and engineering, no doubt. Studying computational models of reality can be cheaper and better than studying reality. Today, if you go to learn driving, for example, you might be using a computer simulated technology where you learn driving without getting into a real car. If you are studying surgery, you might not need a human body. You will work on 3D models on laptop. Sometimes reality is impossible to measure or too steep by scale, and computational models are the only way to get any purchase on it. How can you extend a tape from Earth to Moon? Practically. So the only way to measure distance from Earth to Moon is doing calculations using computer generated models. Those are the actual computer revolutions. The others are mostly potential and not real, locked up in awe-inspiring icebergs that just float around eliciting admiration and making trouble. The computer revolution is still frozen, latent, waiting to happen. Actually, this sentence was written 21 years before. So today, the computer revolution has taken place, we know. If Gallagher was rewriting this essay today, he would rethink this statement. But 21 years before, it is true to say that computer revolution is still frozen, latent and waiting to happen. There are possibilities. Okay. Again he makes another claim in paragraph 30. As for the information age, it must have begun at least 100 years ago if
As I read the lines of the paragraphs and go on explaining, paraphrasing, what is a guarantee that my students are attentively following me? What is the guarantee that they are following the words, the lines I'm reading? As I reflect, I do realize that probably this is a poor way of teaching because it guarantees my activity, my participation. I'm speaking, I'm reading, I'm paraphrasing, I'm explaining. But there is no guarantee that my learners too were involved with me. There is no guarantee that my learners were paying attention.
it exists at all. So he is answering to those people who say information has just begun. He says no. Information age must have begun 100 years before. Are we better informed? Now he is making a satire. If you say we live in information age, are we better informed than we used to be? See, today when you Google and ask a question to Google, Google gives you 3 lakh, 4 lakh answers. And you don't know which answer is okay. So you are getting too much information. You are getting unnecessary information. And because of overwhelming information, you are being sidetracked, distracted, confused. I doubt it. Look, he says that today we are actually not informed, we are misinformed. Is anyone prepared to assert that the US electorate is better informed today than it was at the time of, say, the 1960 presidential election? He says that if we were better informed, why are we choosing bad leaders? If we are better informed, why are we voting bad political parties? That means we are actually not better informed. That our 5th graders are better informed about reading. If we are better informed, why our students are turning so poor and poor year by year? Why they write poorly? Why they are poor at history? Why they are poor at arithmetic? If we are better informed. That our 5th grade teachers are better informed. Why do teachers make mistakes in class while teaching if they are better informed? Recently, my 5th grade son learned from his English teacher that incredible and incredulous are synonymous. Look, he brings example how a teacher is not informed properly. Incredible and incredulous, they don't have same meaning, but the teacher taught they have same meaning. That is the information age for you. So in this paragraph,
So again, I realized that at this point I should have written the word incredible on the whiteboard as well as I should have written the word incredulous on the whiteboard and I should have clarified the meanings of these two words or optionally I could have invited my students to check these two words in a mobile phone dictionary and see how what the meaning of these two words is. But I didn't explain.
13, he is indirectly making a satire and saying that actually we are not informed, we are misinformed. We are misinformed. So this is, look, we read 13 paragraphs of section 1. And in these 13 paragraphs, he was answering the question, what? Thanks to the computers, we are in a new information age. He was rejecting this idea. When you come to present, I want you to go in depth and explain everything in the presentation. Not just quickly read a piece of paragraph and run away.
So what is happening here? A day before in yesterday's class, I had assigned three groups to make presentation on the three sections of this essay. And when I saw their presentations, I was disappointed. I found that my students are not able to work through the argument of an essay. What they do is many of them Google and they bring information from the Google, they bring notes in the classroom, they come with a mobile phone in the during presentations, they open the mobile phone and they read from the screen of the mobile phone. As I reflect on the previous day's video, you will see this thing, and I'm not happy with the quality of students presentation. But as I say so, I also realize that it is the teacher's responsibility to prepare the students for a better presentation. But again, I'll say our students do not read carefully. Our students do not read the essay multiple times. Our students do not prepare for presentations seriously. And as a result, when they make their presentations in the class, their presentations are shallow and less effective.
Don't follow shortcut methods of presentation. Take time and speak elaborately. Explain in detail. That will help you remember everything for exam.
This is what I want my students to do when they come to for presentation. Rather than summarizing, rather than telling the gist, or rather than reading from the notes without looking at the audience, they should go word by word, syllable by syllable, letter by letter, sentence by sentence, and they should elaborate almost everything. The more they elaborate, the more they explain, the more they paraphrase, the better they will remember and the better they will learn. The better as they paraphrase, as they explain loudly in front of the class, in the mind, in the background, their mind will be reacting to the explanation, and they will start gradually having better understanding of the lesson.
Okay, now we move to section 2. And you will see that in section 2, he answers second question. What was that second question? The second question was, have computers been good or bad for mankind? The second question was, have computers been good or bad for mankind? And you will see that he answers the question right in the first paragraph of the section. This is how you take a position. I told you, this essay is a very good example of how to compose a position argument. Position.
Yes, David Galanter in this essay, Computers and the Pursuit of Happiness, speaks about the topic of technology in human life and human society. And his question is what makes human beings happy? And there are two positions: technology might make human beings happy, or human beings can make human beings happy. He rejects the idea that machines can make us happy, and it takes the position that it is the human beings whose company can make us happy. And I was explaining my students how to write a position paper. There is a section in this book that is titled Essentials of Writing, which deals with writing academic essays. I'm not dealing with that section separately, but as I teach the essays, I try to incorporate the ideas of academic writing as well.
Essay, where you begin by other people's position. This essay starts with general belief that we are in age shift. we were in agricultural era, then we developed industrial era, now we're in information era, somebody said. And he brings that line, he says, and then that's the position he is opposing. That's the position he is opposing. Then he raises three questions. And as an answer of each question, he takes a clear position. For example, in paragraph 2, he clearly said, we are not in an information age, and computers and internet are not a revolutionary development in human society history. And from paragraph 3 to 13 is proving this sentence. So what is the argument? What is the argument? Argument is a simple thing. You make a claim. Where does he make the claim? In paragraph 2. And then you supply reasons to support your claim. Where do you supply reasons? From paragraph 3 to 13. Let's read section 2. I hope you are not. Are you bored now? Or you can listen to me. Can you listen or you get bored? Bored.
Look, this is very surprising. After having spoken for about 20 minutes, 21 minutes, I do realize that I've spoken too much in class, and I turn towards my learners, students, and I ask them whether they can listen to me anymore or whether they are bored. And some of them very clearly say that they are tired of listening to my explanation. As I reflect on this video, I do realize that as a teacher, if we speak like this, however clearly we are speaking, however well we might be explaining, students do not like too much teacher talk in class. Look, they clearly say they are bored. And this is a moment of discovery in my class. This is a moment of reversal in my class, like in tragedy. This is the point where my class reverses to another mode. And look what happens next. It's very interesting.
Now then if you are bored, I want you to be active and read them.
Now they laugh. I said, I want to be active, you to be active. And now they know that now teacher will stop explaining and he will make us read. And I see that many times students do not even like reading it themselves.
Okay, you read. Silently for 15 minutes, read carefully section 2. I know if I speak too much, it's definitely bored.
Now I flip my class. I take off the camera from the stand, hold the mobile camera in my hand, and assign them an activity to read the rest of the essay. And I go around the class filming what happens in class. Now you can see it.
Boring. So in a pair, very carefully read section 2.
Now I assign them a pair activity because in most cases there will be two students sitting by one desk, and I invite them to read together.
And try to see how he answers the question. For example, let me read this first paragraph, 14th paragraph. Have computers been good or bad for mankind since they were invented roughly 50 years ago? He answers, other things being equal, information is good, wealth is good. Computers have supplied lots of information and generated much wealth, but, and he starts. He says, but, and he starts disagreeing. Now read. With complete pin drop silence, read.
As you can see, uh, another interesting thing in my class is that many of the students do not buy a hard copy printed book. They rather obtain soft copy of the text and they upload it in a mobile phone, and whenever they need to read the text, they will open the mobile phone and read from the screen. Two things come in my mind. Is it convenient for these students to read the text over the screen? One. Second, uh, why do they not buy the textbook? This is surprising. You Another thing I realize is that how the use of technology is increasing in our classrooms.
You can make notes as you read about what the authors say. As you read, while you read, can you separate claims and reasons? I don't know. Can you read and then find out which sentences express writer's claim and which sentences present writer's reasons to support the claim?
As you can see, this student is also reading from mobile screen. Now, what I want to say, look, earlier, a minute ago, the teacher was active, the teacher was speaking, the teacher was explaining, paraphrasing, summarizing, the teacher was doing everything. Now, the class has flipped to another dimension, and you can see now the learners are involved in the act of reading. Now they're reading.
Of what?
You can see how these two students are focused on the text.
Avoid talking as you read. I said read with pin drop silence.
You can see she's also reading now. You can see how this student is carefully reading. I'm going around the class carrying my mobile camera and trying to focus on what my students are doing. You can see how carefully this student is reading from his mobile screen. What draws my attention now is that now the teacher is passive and the students are active.
As you read, try to work through Galanter's argument and try to see where he makes claims, where he responds to objections, what reasons he offers, what evidences does he bring.
Look how carefully the students are using pencil to walk through the lines, to browse through the lines and read word by word. Now they are active, they are reading silently, they are thinking. And if they read like this, their reading skills will enhance, not by listening to me as they were doing earlier. Look how this child is using her finger to go through, browse through the words. Look her pencil and how she's pointing, underlining, annotating.
You can make notes of what you understand as you read if you want to.
I saw that many of them were reading, but they were not annotating. They were not being active readers. They seemed to be reading passively without making any notes. So I just tried to guide them and make them aware what they're supposed to do as they read.
We should make notes as we read based on what we understand. Every time you read something, you should have the habit of making notes. Reading without making notes is like eating without digestion. If you
Reading without making notes is eating without digestion. I don't know how is my analogy, but this is what I came to my mind. And I said,
eat without digestion, you have diarrhea. If you read without notes, you end up with confusion. It's always good to be
now look how this student just started making notes in the margin.
interactive. As you read, you can underline something, you can circle something, you can write a comment in the margins of your book, you can raise questions on what you read. If there's a difficult word, you can write its meaning. That is called as interactive reading. You should always hold a pen or pencil while you read. That is called reading with a purpose. You should have some questions in your mind as you read. And have the questions in your mind.
Now, as I watch, I do realize one thing, that I'm saying you should have some questions in the mind while read. But I realize that I could have come to class with a set of questions based on these paragraphs. Either I could have got them printed and distributed these questions and then set students to read, or I could have neatly written a couple of questions or 4 or 5 questions on the whiteboard and asked the students that read these paragraphs and answer the questions. That way, the reading would be more purposeful. This is my weakness, I do realize.
And as you read, try to answer those questions which you have in your mind. That becomes a purposeful reading.
I think this is my defect. How can I expect my students to be able to come up with appropriate questions as they read? As a teacher, I should have given them questions.
Reading with a purpose.
I keep going now in the class again and again, just observing what they're doing, and my focus is on their activities. I focus on what each student is doing. As you can see, how involved these two students are in reading. Look how carefully and how meticulously they are reading the paragraph. Can you see on this side, this child has opened her mobile phone dictionary, and while they're reading, she's also checking meanings. Look, this is student. Very careful how she's using her pencil to browse through the lines and how carefully she's reading. Look, it makes me so happy to see this thing. Now I'm a bit satisfied that I'm not active. My learners are active. This is better than the previous class. I mean, the previous time when I was speaking.
Okay, let's spend 5 minutes discussing the section we read. So the question that he tries to answer in this section is, have computers been good or bad for mankind in the last 50 years? In paragraph 15 he writes, other things being equal, information is good, wealth is also good. Computers might give us information, computers might help us earn wealth, but wealth is not everything. Let's read. But we are marvelously adaptable, means when human beings are quite adaptable, as times change, situation changes, surroundings change, Human beings are able to adapt to the new environment. We can take miserable conditions in stride and triumph over them. We can take wonderful conditions of humanity in any given age has a wealth threshold. He talks about a term that we need to understand. Maybe I need to explain to you. In economics, you have a law that is known as the law of the marginal utility. This is the law I studied in grade 12. And I still remember what my economics teacher, whose name was Banwari Lal Mittal, he taught me with a good example. He said, "Ladko, dekho."
Actually, I got educated in India. I was born in India and I got educated through Hindi medium. So I'm recalling exactly what my teacher said to me in 1986 in my grade 11 economics class, and bringing that memory in class to explain the point here, the idea of wealth threshold.
समझ लो तुमको बहुत भूख लगी है और तुमने बाजार से 1 किलो संतरा खरीदा. I still remember.
Now, students are surprised when they hear the word santara, because in Nepali, you don't call santara, you say something else.
I still remember his words ringing in my ears. समझ लो तुमने बाजार से 1 किलो संतरा खरीदा और तुमको बहुत भूख लगी है, प्यास भी लगी है. तो जब तुम पहला संतरा खाओगे तो तुमको और खाने का दिल करेगा, क्योंकि पहले संतरे से जो तुमको संतुष्टि मिलती है उस संतुष्टि से ज्यादा प्यास तुम्हारी है. If you apply this to another rule is that when you have first input in the factory, the first input has larger output, but as you increase inputs, the output decreases. At one point, increasing input has no effect on the output. The same is true. And he said, इसी तरह जब तुम दूसरा संतरा खाओगे तो पहले से जो है थोड़ा कम मीठा लगेगा, तीसरा खाओगे तो उससे कम मीठा लगेगा, और जब तुम चौथा संतरा खाओगे तो तुम्हारा मन उभर जाएगा और फिर छठा संतरा खाने का दिल नहीं करेगा. और अगर तुमने छठा संतरा खाया तो हो सकता है तुम्हें उल्टी भी हो जाए. When you have additional inputs, they have no effect on the output. They might cause loss to you. They might cause loss because input is there with no output. The same is true here, right? When you have 10 rupee wealth, you may feel like earning 100. When you have 100, you may feel like earning 1,000. When you have 1,000, you may feel like earning 100,000. When you have 100,000, you may feel like earning 1,000,000. But as the money increases, happiness does not increase. There is a threshold. For example, at this point, from this point, your happiness is optimum. Your happiness is optimum. Now, if you have 10 million, your money might increase, but this doesn't guarantee that your happiness will increase, right? So he talks about a wealth threshold. Wealth can make you happy to a point. To a point. After that point, increasing wealth does not guarantee happiness, just as increasing input after a point does not guarantee additional output.
I do realize in this reflection that my explanation is sufficient. Actually, as I watch myself now, I realize I should have said that after a certain point, it is not the amount of increase that matters, It is not the rate of change that matters, it is the quality of increase that matters. I should have emphasized that it is the quality of wealth that gives us happiness, not the amount. And now, as I reflect, I do realize this thing. But in the class, at the spur of the moment, it didn't occur to me.
Look how beautifully it makes the idea of economics to explain. Read ahead. And an information threshold. Yes, information is good only to some extent. Information is good only to some extent. If
I feel like I was not able to explain the idea of threshold. It's an economic term. I was not able to explain the idea of threshold as effectively in this class as I wanted to.
you are below either one, if you are below wealth threshold, if you are below wealth threshold or information threshold, living in poverty or ignorance, if you are below wealth threshold, you are living in poverty. If you are below information threshold, you are living in ignorance. You need more wealth or more information. But once you are over the threshold, look his argument. Look the claim. Once you are over the threshold, only the rate of change matters. Acquire more wealth or information, and presumably you will be happier. Then you stabilize. A point comes when increasing information does not increase knowledge. When increasing wealth does not increase happiness, you get stabilized. In law of marginal utility, there is a point when input and output become stable, right? At a new higher level, and chances are you are no happier
Do you see, we are reaching the end of the class, and now my students have become noisy and they are not able to pay attention to what I'm explaining.
than you are no happier than before. It is not exactly a deep or novel observation that money doesn't buy happiness, neither does information. He clearly says, what does he say? Money does not buy happiness. And at this college, every year when I teach this essay, I ask the students and they starkly disagree. And they say, no, Divakar sir, we disagree with Galanter. We believe that money buys happiness. But in life, you will reach a point when you will realize, yes, money does not bring happiness. What brings happiness is a human being. What brings us happiness is a human being, not money and information. You cannot hug a bundle of currency. You need a
I should have a bundle of money, I guess, or bundle of rupees, I should have said.
person to hug. You cannot kiss a coin. You need real cheeks to kiss. Right? You cannot kiss a coin.
What do you think? Is it inappropriate to give such example, or is it appropriate? My students are ages 19 and 20.
You cannot lie in a bed of gold. You need a spouse. You cannot marry a silver statue. You need a real living being, right? So the point this essay makes is, it is not technology that brings us happiness. It is the bond with another human being. So if you want to be happy, make real friends, not the virtual friends on your Facebook list, not the followers on Instagram. Have you seen the news? Many influencers on Instagram and YouTube commit suicide. Many influencers who have billions and millions of followers, they are reported to commit suicide. If they were happy,
Somebody asked why.
because they are depressed, they commit suicide.
Now somebody said time is over. Look, now my students are impatient to get out of the class, and they say time is over.
because they are depressed. They have millions to follow. They don't have a real person, right? Look, some people down that corner are busy counting time while we are learning something. And
look what happened. I got a bit angry in class. I was not happy that some of the students were not listening to me and they were impatient counting the time that my time is over. I just turned the camera, focused them. I just wanted to a bit scare them, make them careful and listen to me. I don't know if this is the right thing or wrong thing to do. If you're watching this video, please comment if my behavior is appropriate or inappropriate as a teacher.
they say time is up, sir. They're busy keeping time. Their attention is on the clock, not on what I'm saying. Right? Pay attention to what your teacher is discussing and try to learn. Right?
This is student who is showing her V fingers. Look how normally they take. My students are habituated to camera in the class, and it makes no effect on them. They take it as usual.
I know. Time is up. Thank you.
I was a bit angry because I felt that they were not paying attention to what I was saying, but they were looking after. But I do realize that. Look what happens. I was trying to speak and I was forcing my students to listen to me, and it was 5 minutes past 9 o'clock at this time. And my students got impatient, and it's very right. So, as a teacher, I should realize this thing that I cannot force my students to listen to me. If I force, this is what this happen. This is what will happen. They will keep time and they will say, "Time is up, sir."
For
Okay, this is where I stop. Actually, I'm playing this video on my laptop in YouTube, and this video is already uploaded to my channel. And now this is complete. Now another video has appeared. Let me wrap up. Uh, I made this reflection, and I saw two things in my class. First 20-25 minutes are teacher centered, and later 20-20 minutes are learner centered. Uh, Please, you watched it. Do leave constructive suggestions, criticisms, and help me teach better in coming days. Your feedback will be invaluable, whether you are a teacher or teacher trainer or educator or a professor or my colleagues at the department or my colleagues at the college where I teach this course, whoever you are, even if you're a student, please do leave a comment if you watched my video. Thank you.